joint meeting of the District Building Advisory Committee and the Building Level Advisory Committee. I appreciate everyone joining us tonight. I know we'll have other people join us as we get into the meeting. And I'm sorry to be off camera for the moment. This is Emily Figdor, District 2 School Board Rep and co-chair of the DABC. I will be just in a few minutes able to join via camera as well. So I'm gonna hand it to Mark in a minute to move us through the agenda. Just wanted to tee up that we have a decision to make tonight, which is looking at the furniture, fixtures, and equipment budget and allocating money between the three schools, or among the three schools, I guess I should say. And so that is our core work tonight. We'll start with an update and then get into all of the details in terms of where we're at on the remaining budget and the FFE budget specifically. So, and then I think we'll hold, just given attendance right now, we'll hold on approving the minutes from our last meeting until the end of the meeting. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark at Harriman. And I think as a group, we've been meeting over the last several months as our joint committee, our two committees jointly. So I'm not going to take the time to do introductions, but I really value and everyone's participation tonight and welcome everyone. So Mark, I'm going to hand it to you.
Very good. Thank you, Emily. And we've got our presentation, and I'll share my screen here. Let's see if this works. So hopefully you can all see that. And I'll advance the slide here in a minute, which the agenda will look very familiar to you folks. It's a standard lineup with the exception of we will be doing the FFE update and a motion to approve how we allocate the FFE funding for the three different schools. So that will be the information that we'll share that's slightly different than usual. And so with that, and I'm joined by Lisa Sawin and Emily Waugh from Harriman. And Lisa is going to kind of lead us through update on the construction front. And we'll give you kind of the usual bullet points and what's been going on, and then we'll share the pretty pictures. Lisa?
Thanks, Mark. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Great to see so many of you again. I welcome Dave Lewis and Steve Stilfen, and I don't see, Tamara, you guys want to chime in on any of this? You're as intimately familiar with this as I am, or any of the principals that are on. But I'll walk through where we're at, and then we'll look at some pictures as to where the projects are. So phase 2 at Longfellow, which is the lower level. The installation is nearly complete and other finishes are underway in the boys' restroom. Phase 2C, which is the elevator, they're prepping for the installation of the elevator and the exterior metal siding. This phase remains on schedule to be completed on 4/14. And then phase 2D, which is the addition, exterior brick masonry is ongoing. The curtain wall framing is in process. They're waiting on the drywaller for the upper level bump out. There's a small bump out on the exterior at the pre-K room. And painting of the lower level walls is underway. We have millwork cabinets and ELL and reading are installed. Concrete stairs are poured and in-wall inspection was completed. Next slide. Phase 2B and 2D schedule. Phase 2B and 2D were scheduled to be completed on 2/17, but are delayed until March 3rd. Commissioning is now scheduled for 2/22. This was originally scheduled for 2/15, but the subs were not ready. Above ceiling inspection is scheduled for February 23rd, and the final inspection is for March 1st. The lead flush out is scheduled for February 28th. And then the owner move-in is scheduled for the afternoon of March 3rd. So I know that Tamara is coordinating all of this with the principals, and they've all been notified of the change. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all while we're on that topic.
The move has been, yes, rescheduled for March 3rd, and we're on track to make that happen. So we're all good.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for your work on that. It's a ever evolving item. Phase 4B, which is the kindergarten classrooms, that is complete. Phase 5, which is the second floor. Portland Public Schools has been working on moving classrooms over the last few weeks. This will result in having no occupied classrooms on the second floor by February school vacation. Abatement will begin as soon as phases 2B and 2D are complete. And Harriman has received approvals from the city for phasing plans for phase 5. So we're ready to rock and roll once the area is available. Phase 6, which is the first floor library and music wing, in completion of the corridor. Harriman is working on those phasing drawings to get to the city. And this phase is scheduled to be completed August 2023.
So something on the phase 5, the second floor, that was what our original plan was, to be out of the second floor by school break. But since they had a delay, that's not something that's going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. We'll get that updated. So the challenge is completion of phase 2B and 2D on schedule. We were very clear with the contractor. We needed to be made aware if there was any issue with meeting that well in advance, so that the Portland school team could put together a revised plan and get notified. And so they did let us know that that would not meet the previous schedule they had outlined. And as discussed at last month's meeting, there were concerns about improper vapor barrier and window installation at the addition, as identified in Sparhawk's report. And for those that don't know, Sparhawk is the commissioning agent. They essentially make sure that mechanical, electrical, building systems, envelope are all installed properly and per the design documents. Blaine Casey, the contractor, has issued responses back to the commissioning agent. And we've received a revised report from them dated January 30th. All issues with the vapor barrier were resolved. There are a few items pending yet on the windows and expansion joint, and they're working through that. As noted on the previous slide, commissioning is now scheduled for 2/22. This was originally scheduled for 2/15, but the subs were not ready. I don't think that's supposed to say commissioning, that's supposed to say inspections. The concern is impact on completing addition on schedule. And this implication has implications for starting phase 5, which we talked about, essentially not being able to move the second floor when they wanted to, or February break. And as I mentioned before, they confirmed this concern, and this is why there is the slide to March 3rd. We can look at some pictures. This is first, the large picture is the pre-K classroom, where you see the plastic is the bump out. There's a bump out window reading nook there for the pre-K classroom. And then the pre-K north wall is receiving drywall. And going over to the right top photo, door 158A is framed and awaiting drywall on a door frame, essentially a cross-corridor door. And then on the lower left, small image, we're looking into corridor 50 through the new door frame and the existing wall. And then the lower right is the lower level boys bathroom tile work was ongoing in this image. I think that's the update for Longfellow. Any questions before we move on to Reiki?
Laura, yeah, I think you have your hand up.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that, Lisa. I just was wondering, I don't see Nicole Bradeen here, so I don't know if I could get this question from other staff to answer just about, I'm just curious what the impact of that, delay with moving and the sub issue is on, the staff and student, the plan that was in place, just to kind of understand, how that's being experienced in the building.
Hi, sorry, I was on as a, I was on the right Zoom, but as a panelist, not a participant.
So did you hear that question?
I did hear the question. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it gave us a little bit more time to pack, but it's so that's, never a bad thing. But what's hard is now we have, we feel like we've kind of been in just the middle of transition for a couple weeks. So we have empty classrooms upstairs. We have some people move. We have some people haven't moved. We have boxes everywhere. It just feels a little bit 2 weeks, actually it's only another week of just kind of feeling in transition. I think, to be honest, it's been tough because I think people are feeling like, okay, what, Nicole gives us direction, then it changes again. And it's eroding some kind of feeling of confidence in the system. And that's, been hard as a school to say, here's the plan. And people feel like, okay, we put a lot of time into making the plan, and the plan has changed at least twice, even in the past couple months. So trying to rebuild trust around that and just with some of the other pieces that haven't really, fallen into place exactly as we anticipated, just with some of the leaks and stuff like that. And, some other stuff going on. And I'd be happy to talk offline if people have specific questions. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to do that. But thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you. I think, would you mind just, Lisa, going back to that last slide, or Mark, whoever's doing the, because I feel like there was some language about, trying to communicate, right, the changes. But I mean, I'm guessing some of that sub piece is like, that's, that happened without, any knowledge that was going to come before, right? So, did I see something about?
I know, I mean, the contractor put forth their schedule, and I know that the team constantly asked them if they thought they were going to hit it. We raised concerns. Yeah. I think, Dave, maybe you can speak to this as well.
Yeah, we've been, Blaine Casey had a major schedule update, or a very thorough vetting of their schedule that they submitted last week. And we're pushing them almost daily to confirm and reconfirm their dates. And the dates Lisa had presented earlier about when their above ceiling inspections are going to happen, final inspections, the flush, the move, they are reconfirming those on an almost daily basis. So they understand the importance of meeting those dates. We agree there have been a few too many shifts and changes. So we are monitoring it as closely as we possibly can.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just to know that that's a piece that's like kind of just ongoing confirmation of those updates, like as much as you can. So that I appreciate that context of that's happening behind the
almost scenes. Daily.
So thank you so much.
Yep.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I think we can keep going.
Okay. We'll move on to Reiki. Reiki, phases 4 and 5. Phase 4 was completed and received its certificate of occupancy. Phase 5 has more than begun. It's well underway. MEP rough end is complete. They're insulating the walls. They're starting to hang drywall. Roof update, the roof plaza work has been approved. Work will begin this summer. We will need to apply for a separate building permit for this work. Challenges, exterior siding was delayed, but is now en route. this work will be delayed until early summer. Next slide.
And just a clarification, we sometimes use words like MEP. I think most people have heard that by now, but that's the mechanical, which is the heating and ventilation systems, the electrical systems, and the plumbing systems. So.
Thank you, Mark. We try to avoid acronyms. So pictures, and I'm sure as soon as we take these pictures, they're out of date. Things are happening fast. Door and window blocking all installed. See lots of framing here, lots of in-wall blocking and electrical and plumbing. I think there might be another slide of pictures, but I could be wrong. No more pictures. Okay. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about the progress since these photos?
Just more of the same, more framing, more mechanical, electrical, plumbing rough-ins. They are proceeding pretty smoothly. And as you mentioned, the photos are out of date and behind almost as soon as they're transferred off of the camera. Yeah. Because Hardy Pond is making good progress up there.
I'm wondering if the needing the additional permit for the Reiki roof, if that is going to present any challenges, or if we anticipate that presenting any challenges.
We'll work closely with the city. I think we're very familiar with working with them. We are in touch with them almost every week. So I think being communicative through the whole process with them, I don't anticipate some of the challenges that we experienced early on. But I think it's something we want to get on as soon as possible to make sure that we have more than adequate time to get that through and we can start construction when necessary.
Great. And when do you anticipate us submitting the permit to the city?
I think it's going to be a couple weeks for us to pull it together. So I would anticipate a few weeks from now, given next week is school break.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
All right. Any questions on Reiki before we jump into Brzezinska? So I see Anj is on. Anj, I invite you to speak to any of this as well as we go through. I think I can say that yours is almost done.
Yeah, it's done. It's kind of done, right? It's done. Yay!
We are on punch list. And so getting ready for the flush out. And so really exciting time over at Brzezinska. Exciting time in all of them, but when you can see that huge light at the end of the tunnel, it's pretty amazing. So front and rear additions, the punch list has been created by Harriman for area B, which is the new addition out back, for architectural, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, and technology. Cleaning is ongoing. The pre-K and K classrooms are complete. Great Falls Construction is correcting punch list items, and Harriman is verifying those items are complete. We are there today. Rubber flooring in the corridor accent areas has been completed. The lead required flush out began today and scheduled to be completed. Sorry, not today. It's going to begin tomorrow. I'm a day off. And scheduled to be completed February 18th. The main entrance has been open for use. Installation is nearly complete. They're waiting to install that one piece of trim when they get that. They'll do that after hours to not impact the school. And all casework has been installed, which is a huge accomplishment. We've had lots of ups and downs of getting casework installed on the projects. Training for staff is being scheduled for mechanical units, door access controls, kitchen equipment, technology and electrical systems. And the contractor is working on demobilizing and coordinating removal of fencing and, when work is complete. I believe the job trailer is gone. I think is there another update slide on this one, Mark? Yeah, one more. Schedule update. We talked about the flush out already. Final move-in to new spaces happens February 21st through the 26th, so next week. And students and teachers come back to new spaces. Like we said before, the front addition is open. Site work update, no changes since the last meeting. And furniture, the first round of furniture has been procured for Presumpscot, and Anj, I'll reach out for an update again on that. I haven't heard anything since our last update.
I can add to that. I talked to him this afternoon.
Excellent.
WB Mason has got us penciled in for the 24th for delivery. It's Friday, next Friday. And if it changes, he said there may be the cots that come in on the following March 3rd. So the quick ship is coming in bits and pieces now. So that's
awesome.
Good news.
That's great news.
That's great. It's just one correction. I think you just misread the dates because it's saw a couple of people's eyes. So the flush out is done on Saturday, this Saturday.
Gotcha.
Yep. For the move in next week. So, and yeah, it's exciting.
What a milestone. It's incredible.
It's incredible. Like we've done some tours, we've tried to follow most of the rules, but you all should come over and take a look at it. It's pretty amazing.
So we'll get to it at the end of the meeting, but we do have the scheduled tours of all three schools on March 4th. So for all of us, all of you who want to see firsthand, and I hope as many people as many committee members as possible can make it. But I know it's going to be. I haven't been in Presumpscot yet. I know it's going to be just mind blowing.
I don't know if it was Anj or somebody else who shared how excited the students were when they got glimpses into the new spaces, and that's what it's all about. So that's amazing. So the pictures you see here, just to ground people on where we're at in the building. I know some of us know this very well, but realize that others may not know what we're looking at. So the lower or the left-hand corner or the left-hand image with all the wonderful colors and boxes, that is looking up the corridor. We say from the nest, and you're probably wondering what that is. This is the pre-K kindergarten wing. And essentially there's a small gathering space behind us that we call the nest. And this is looking up the wing towards the main corridor that goes to the cafeteria, music and art. And those boxes are both reading nooks, but also views into the cafeteria. So it connects the students with the cafeteria as well. And the smaller images, the one in the middle, top middle, that is what we're calling the nest area. So it's a small pull-off area where you can put furniture and sit out there with a small group for learning, and it has a nice vista out to the woods. And then the upper right image is down that corridor that I just explained that takes you to the cafeteria. You can see the lettering that spells out cafeteria on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is an exterior door that takes you out to hardscape play area, and the hallway takes you to art and music. The bottom two images, the one in the center is the new front entry for Presumpscot, the butterfly roof, and the lower right image is a view of one of the kindergarten classrooms. And anything to add? Any favorite spaces thus far, or just excited in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, the cafeteria for me is like a dream come true. So it's my favorite space, and the nook, once we get some furniture in there, is I think going to be the second. And I actually feel like there's some teachers who are so inspired they may want to teach K again. So I mean, all of that is pretty good news, I'd say. And we had our first official meeting in the cafeteria with all the principals, and it was just, I don't know. I mean, I didn't go through all of this, but it's incredible. So yeah, those are my favorites. I mean, the whole thing, I guess, right? The entryway, everything. I had someone singing, actually. This is a great moment. I should have taken a video. In our new lobby area, we're practicing for our community meeting, and we had people singing in there today. So it's just lovely.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad every nook and cranny is already being used and you haven't even occupied it yet. Awesome. Any questions on Presumpscot before we move into the rest of the updates? All right. Thank you all. Back to you, Mark.
Great. Thank you very much. And so as we've done in past months, an update on where we are in the expense of contingency funds. And so these are the official numbers of the changes to the contractor's actual contract value. And so they don't account for any potential pending, but that is all being very carefully tracked by Mr. Lewis. And we get updates on that regularly. I think we just got an update either today or yesterday. So it was may have been this morning. But and so where we're at right now for Longfellow, we've got $300,000 left in the contingency. For Reiki, 116 after we've transferred the most recent $100,000, which again, this is a pending. There was a first read on it last week at the school board meeting. And so there'll be a vote on it here coming up shortly for that to make it official. And that will leave us with 116. So right now we're at 16,000, but that $100,000 will cover what we need to complete that project. And then Presumpscot, I think it's a little lower now after we've had a few items, but that aren't official yet. They'll catch up on the next month's requisition. And so, but that was about $25,000. So there'll be a small amount remaining, we think, on that will probably hold until the site work is done in the spring here, and then we'll be able to pull those funds back into the rest of the potential funding for the FFE. So I'll pause for a minute if there are any questions. Okay. Now, in terms of where we are with the furniture, as was just mentioned, the early package for Presumpscot is on its way here shortly. And so what we're trying to do with the discussion tonight is establish what the budgets are so we can really begin in earnest the effort to identify a budget and then begin the conversation on the priority of needs for each of the schools. And I'll stop for a section. It looks like Laura's got a hand up.
Laura, go ahead.
I was just curious, that furniture package for Presumpscot, what exactly is that new furniture coming in?
It's for the front office space, Laura.
Okay, so with that, we'll move into, Laura, you still have your hand up or you're good? Okay, you're good. All right, great. In terms of the amount trying to arrive at, what is the amount available for the FFE? And so after, again, we deducted out for the new work and delay claims way back when, and for the most recent Reiki contingency after we kind of depleted that with the shift of funds to correct the roof work, we're about 1.1 million. And then after we look at the reduction for the technology, we then were at 615. So, and we do have that amount just under the 25,000 for that first order of furniture for Presumpscot as well.
Mark, I'll just note for the committees that the school board considered on first read the DABC's recommendation that we move that $100,000 from the FFE budget to the Reiki contingency, but won't vote on it until our next meeting on the 28th.
So the next numbers we'll look at are sort of pending that official vote. And just for comparison, again, we put this slide up, I think, the last meeting too, but just to understand what the expenses were for LISAT, we had about $100,000 in technology and about $130,000 in furniture. And that was furniture primarily for the library, for the new admin edition, and for the reconstructed and reconfigured kindergarten wing classrooms, pre-K and K rooms in the kindergarten. And then there were a few other items that I think through the course of moving in, there were some additional here and there items, if you will, that, but it primarily funded and some equipment for the new gymnasium there as well. So one of the ways that we looked at the allocation of the FFE funds would be looking at the enrollments of each of the three schools. And so if you prorated the funds of about 615,000 and you looked at it by percentage of students, you get about 166,000 for Longfellow, 289,000 for Reiki, and 159,000, almost 160,000 for Presumpscot, of which the 24,000 would be part of that 159. So that's one way of looking at it. And then I think another way we could look at it is we evaluated the total construction of the different areas. So we have new construction and then heavy renovation. And those are the areas that really get a lot of intense work. And so if we were to look at that, we would have, Longfellow would have 16% because a lot of their classrooms had a lot of abatement, but that wasn't a lot that impacted heavy renovation. It was finishes, putting new flooring and new ceilings and lighting in, and some casework, but it wasn't a significant heavy renovation throughout the entire building. Whereas as Reiki, we essentially created all new spaces, all new walls, all new infrastructure for utilities and everything. So Reiki has a disproportionately large percentage of heavy renovation from the three different projects, and then Presumpscot, as you know, is very heavy on the additions, and so this prorating very different. It would be about 100,000 for Longfellow, 300 and so for Reiki, and then just under 200 for Presumpscot. So that would be a very different way of allocating the funds. The conversation is like, and then if we did it, just to get another evaluation, is if you just did it based on total square footage for the overall projects, you'd have Longfellow's the smallest of the three schools at this point, or actually take that back, slightly bigger than Presumpscot. So Presumpscot's the smallest of the three schools at 43,000 square feet, Longfellow at 48,000, and Reiki at 81,000. So you'd have 25, 28, and 47% respectively. And so that you can see what the distribution would be in that regard. So looking at that, the recommendation to allocate that we thought would put forward as the preferred recommendation is based on the enrollment, just dividing it based on the students that are housed at each of the schools. Felt like a very fair way of doing it. And so that follows the numbers that we presented on the very first slide. And so they're not significantly different from the overall square footage, and that makes sense because the building size is proportionate to the number of students, at just slightly different amounts in that regard. And so I will pause and turn it back over to Co-Chair Figdor if she is available.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark. And I see a question from Matthew. And this is definitely the time for questions. So what we're going to do is consider questions, have a discussion, and then entertain a motion and vote on this recommendation or changes to it. So I'm going to start with Matthew and then go to Paul.
Yeah, three questions, I think. First one is proportionally based on the funds spent at Lyseth. Lyseth is a much larger school than these three, and came in at significantly lower at the 128,000 for furniture. So it seems, at least from what you shared with us, that these are no matter how you slice it, these are reasonable budgets for each school. Is that correct, Mark?
Exactly, Matt, and that's kind of what we provided that as a reference for. Even though there's been some escalation in costs for furniture since LICET, it's kind of important to remember too. We've seen everyone's aware of inflation everywhere, but yeah, they're reasonable budgets to really do a comparable level of investment.
Then, because it leads to sort of my next question, which is what are you seeing? So I raised this question back, I think September, October, about evaluating everything at one time. It seems, since you haven't gone too far with furniture for Presumpscot yet, you're doing inventories of Reiki and Longfellow, that there's still an ability to buy this all out somewhat in concert with one another, or at least develop a better understanding of what the needs are. Are you close to having an understanding of if these budgets are consistent with the needs of each of the three schools?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack there, but I'll do the best I can, and certainly Lisa and Steve and others can chime in as well. But we will be able. I think part of your point is, can we leverage one contract buy for the furniture now across the three schools? I think there's an element of that in there, Matt. But the answer is yes. That we're going to have to go out for a competitive bid. We were the fast track, the first procurement, because under a $25,000 threshold. But the next one will require that we go out for a competitive bid, and we'll look at the timing and if it makes sense to do all that as one package. The other question I think you had is will it address all of the needs of the school? My guess is that we could probably come up with a big list of wants that probably exceeded the budgets, but the intent is to go through a prioritization with each of the schools so that they can help identify where those needs are that we can most meet with the budgets that we have, with the budget that we have.
Okay, and that's where I was heading with this, is making sure that every school has an opportunity to at least ask for what they need, and if we need to make adjustments, then you start looking at this prioritization. But if Reiki's needs are they've got, just because they're obviously dedicated to the larger pot of money, but if their needs are only 3/4 fulfilled and they get everything that they want out of that 3/4, then obviously there's money that can be spread to the other two. So that's why, sort of, again, my sort of pretzel logic is that you look at this holistically so that you can do everything that you need for each of the schools. So that's my only recommendation or suggestion. I guess that's slightly askew from what you're asking of folks tonight. And with that, I've got to sort of join another meeting that Emily, I believe, is aware of. So I'm going to, on that note, bow out of tonight's meeting, but thanks for listening to my questions.
Matthew, before you go, could I just get an indication if this is a motion that you support? I think I heard yes, and I hope you don't mind my putting you on the spot, but I do want to, if we want to, this is something we can change, and we could incorporate your point about prioritization. I do think that is our intent for sure, as you heard, but I want to make sure that this captures the spirit of what how the committees want to proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of allocating based on enrollment, but I want to make sure that each school's absolute needs are identified so that we can have a full whole understanding of what each school may need in that prioritization that Mark suggested. So I guess I would just add that I support this with the asterisk of making sure that every school gets the opportunity to ask for what they need.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Paul, please go ahead.
Yeah, so am I understanding that we do not have a list of or an understanding of the furniture that we actually need for each of the schools? And because it seems that this is kind of an arbitrary way to distribute money when we don't know what the furniture is that we need in each of the schools. And I guess I'm questioning why we don't know that yet, because it makes an awful lot more sense to have put together a specification for what we need for furniture in each of the schools and understand what they each might cost rather than an arbitrary way to distribute money. Although, and if we're not that far along yet, then I guess I'll go along with the arbitrary allocation.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say I can speak to that. Paul, what we were looking for is to at least have a budget established so that as we prioritize, we can be able to talk about what amount of furniture we might be able to allocate to each school. We are going to do the inventory, but we find if we present, everything under the sun, there's a false expectation as to what we can provide. So we like to at least start with a budgetary number, understanding what we can plan to, but it's really going to come down to that prioritization.
So do you guys have a sense that there's enough money here to furnish all three of these schools?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say, so a lot of the schools have very, very functional furniture, and then the majority of their spaces, there's not like we're creating brand new spaces like you might in a brand new school that we need to furnish. And so a lot of it is looking at the areas that we do having added new space. And then it's also looking at areas that we can leverage the funds that are there to create enhancements in the types of furniture that they have. So there may be some replacements, but nearly all spaces have functional furniture because they're using spaces today, and a lot of spaces are, for instance, Longfellow, the classrooms are all renovated, but they all had furnishings before, and so it's looking at which furniture is most distressed, and in what areas can we make enhancements in the types of furniture. So
we're not going to have kids sitting on the floor anywhere.
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Unless they want to.
Right.
And I know sometimes that's appropriate. So.
Yeah.
And also, can I add that the LICEF model, when we came out of LICEF and looking at furniture coming out at that $112,000 expenditure, we were $330,000 under budget, which that number rolled forward into the following projects. And the conversations with the administration, the teachers there really worked really well in identifying their satisfaction at that number of 112 for the furniture. Now, there were always some maybe specific or individual requests for certain types of furniture that we did pick up some in operation. So just keep that in the context of these numbers as we get through Presumpscot, looking at Reich and Longfellow's use. So that's the model we used at LICEF.
And then, Steve, do you want to speak to the fact that we purchased quite a bit of furniture during COVID?
Yes. Yeah, there were a lot of chairs and specific size desks from pre-K to K to third grade furniture that was purchased. I don't recall the number the total number of CARES Act dollars, but we have increased our furniture substantially with that funding. Mainly classroom desks and chair sizes, cafeteria tables, so forth and so on, for the social distancing aspect of the COVID plan.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Emily?
That was actually my follow-up question. That's my experience at Presumpscot, is that we have a number of brand new desks that were purchased through CARES Act, and that in many of the spaces in our building, in my observation, that wasn't true of my last visit to Reiki. So I'm just wondering about the percentage of at Reiki and at Longfellow, how many of the rooms are outfitted with the new desks, and how many would need to be replaced. I think that maybe it's just a question that's lingering in my mind.
Lisa, will you be able to get back to us about that after when you're
once we do our inventories, which will be after February break, we'll be able to address those questions, what we've kind of assessed from a need to replace, if you would like us to specifically look at what was provided by CARES Act and whether that was other places, we can do that, or we can work with Steve and his team to identify if that was one of the receiving schools.
It sounds like just getting a sense of if there's a greater need at Reiki. It sounds like. I
think what, if I understand Emily's question, it's does both, not just Reiki, but Reiki and Longfellow, did they receive the CARES Act furniture similar to Presumpscot with the desks? Or is there a greater need to replace desks there? I think is what your question was, right, Emily?
Yes, that was the question. Thank you.
So can we work on answering that?
Yep. No, we can. We'll work with Steve and his team to determine what was purchased for Longfellow and Reiki. Our assessment is looking at, are there pieces that essentially are at the point where they need to be replaced? And so that's different than looking at if it was replaced recently with CARES Act. So we'll work with them to have that answer as well.
Thank you. And I see both, and so let's go to Angie and then Mr. M.
So just to clarify, we've already done the inventory at Presumpscot. And there's potential that some schools did not get the desks because they didn't say they wanted them. Most of us said we wanted them. So I think most of the schools did get the desks. And I'm a little worried that it takes a long time to get the furniture. So they placed this order for furniture months ago, and we're just getting it, like when we first went in November. And so in order for us to get any furniture for our new addition, it's, we're going to order it. We're probably not going to have it until the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year. So the longer this process draws out in terms of trying to find out who has desks and, who has what need, it's going to feel a little like, oh, wow, okay. So we're not going to get any furniture for, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I don't even want that much, but like, it would be nice since we have built this school, to be able to have some funds allocated to us at this point to, buy some furniture. So I just want to say that, like, it takes a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ansha. The sooner we can define budgets to work within, the sooner we can get this process complete.
Thank you, Angie. That's incredibly helpful context, and that is why this recommendation and motion is on our agenda tonight. Charlie.
Just wanted to give a cursory answer to Emily's question, which is a good question about Reiki, and that is that the majority of classrooms have very old furniture. So at least, 30, 40 years old. We didn't use any CARES Act to replace chairs or desks. We would be looking to purchase new equipment for our students.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, if there aren't additional questions, I would love for someone to make this motion, and then we can go ahead and vote. It's technically a vote of the DABC, but I would love, since we're meeting jointly, our two committees, to get a sense of whether there's support for this motion among both participants of both, or members of both committees. So please, we'll need a motion and a second from a DABC member, but then I'm going to look to everyone to vote, members of both committees. And then, so I'm going to start there. Is there a motion?
Nobody else will move it. I move that we allocate the furniture budget based on the recommendation to allocate based on enrollment.
Thank you very much, Paul. And is there a second?
Second.
I saw Aura's hand, so let's go with that. Okay, and then maybe Mark, if you don't mind taking the slide down for a sec so I can see people. Great. So all in favor of the motion to allocate the FFE budget based on the number of students at the schools, please indicate just with a show of hands. Okay. And is there anyone who's opposed? Okay, thank you so much. So the motion passes unanimously. And again, technically it's a vote of the DABC, but I really appreciate members of the BLAC indicating their support as well. Okay, so we are close to the end of this meeting. We have a final slide, I believe, on next steps. Going to hand it back to Mark.
Great. So excitingly, we are going to conduct building tours. Finally, I think we had originally scheduled them prior to, but then with all the schedule changes, it works out better this way. Anyway, so March 4th, which is a Saturday, we will be conducting tours. I don't know if we have a time yet for that, but we will be certainly sending out a notice to everyone. And Emily, I think this is intended as potentially open to the community, but you can maybe provide that update on it.
Yes, I believe the goal is to invite, or the intent is to invite the full community, and we'll need to get those invitations out soon. I don't know, Steve, if you have any more details at this point, but if not, we will follow up soon with the details. I do believe the intention is to do these in the morning.
No, I don't have any further details, Emily, but we'll start developing those and get out the invitations as we did for LISA.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you'll all go away, have your February break, and then you'll come back and be able to see all the really great new spaces. So looking forward to that, as well as some of it's still in construction areas. You may not get to in them, but you'll see them up a little closer. And then our next meetings scheduled at this point are for March, DABC meeting and BLAC meeting in the 3rd and 4th. And then I don't know, Emily, if we wanted to have a conversation on whether people preferred at this point with the kind of progress we're making, that do we want to just have it combined, or do we want to maintain separates? And Emily, I'll turn it back to you for that.
Yes, thank you. So what I was thinking was that we would continue to meet jointly, our two committees, given that there isn't separate work for the BLAC right now. And I know I appreciate having the BLAC meetings, the BLAC members part of this meeting. And so I think, unless there's a feeling like it makes more sense to meet separately, our proposal is to continue to meet jointly until a time when, there's an agenda item. If that time comes, we might have just gotten to the point where we've done the separate work. And so I think for now, it makes sense to meet jointly. So I'm wondering if that also resonates for members of the DABC and BLAC. Is there anyone who would prefer to meet separately? And if not, I think the expectation could be for BLAC members that you block out the 3rd Thursday of the month for these meetings, and then you can have you can plan around that rather than waiting each month to know when your meeting is going to be. So any thoughts on that or feedback? Okay, then let's proceed with our committees continuing to meet jointly on the 3rd Thursday of the month at 6 p.m.
Great. And the very last item that we identified here is working with Principal Taylor to develop the ribbon cutting for Presumpscot. Very exciting. And at which time she will lead all of us in singing in the hallways of...
I can't wait for that.
Me neither, Angie.
So,
Okay.
And that concludes our meeting. And I know, Emily, I think you wanted to do approval of minutes.
I want to do the minutes real fast. So
Nicole has a question.
Oh, sorry. I do not see Nicole.
Sorry. Quick question. How do I know if I should be attending the DABC or the BLAC meeting?
So now we're just meeting jointly. For the foreseeable future, we're going to meet jointly. So it's just.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I thought it separated as in next steps. Just kidding.
We did, because historically that's what we've done, but we're just at the point in the progress on these projects that we're thinking it makes sense just to meet together. So the third Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. Okay, I hope folks have seen the minutes from our last meeting, and I wonder if there's a motion, or first, if there's any questions or changes to those minutes, and if not, if there's a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Thanks, Ben. Is there a second? Matthew? All in favor of approving the minutes from our last meeting? Just with a show of hands. It's unanimous and the minutes are approved. Thank you so much, everyone. So unless there's anything else, any other questions or comments, this concludes our meeting tonight. See you on, hope to see you on March 4th for the tours. And I think that will be inspiring and a big celebration, especially at Presumscott, but I know just seeing all of the progress at all three schools. So hope to see everyone on March 4th with the details of that coming out soon. And then at our next meeting on March 16th. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight.
Thank you all. Good night.